check, 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 check. Check, 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 mic, check, 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 mic, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Reverb. Just a little bit.
Robert is passing along. Oh, sorry.
Check.
Robert is passing out the love language test. If you already know yours, then you don't need it. But if you would like to know it,
Amen, brother.
You may want that.
The ultimate. I thought your love language was food. I got raffle tickets, Mark. I got raffle tickets for an over and under shotgun. Guys, I got raffle tickets for an over under shotgun. $5 a ticket or 5 for 20. It's a Yildiz SBZME 12 gauge, $450 retail. Free, no extra charge. Yes. Only because your son's not there yet. I said that too. Okay, well, it's just a couple minutes after 6, 5 after 6, 4 after 6, so let's go ahead and get started. You want to take, here, you can make copies, can't you? My bride's leaving me. Wait, babe, we're live. All right, she's going to go make a couple more copies of the spiritual gift. I mean, not the spiritual gift test, but the love language test. Had a couple of you request that last week. That stuff's not scripture, but it is pretty helpful in identifying how you receive love and what language you speak in order to communicate love or love to be communicated to you. So, pretty cool stuff. All right, well, while she's making those copies, let's go ahead and pray and ask God to bless our time. And I will make a short announcement, too, just to reemphasize one more time. We're having a community prayer service this coming Wednesday at First Baptist Church Landrum for all of you who are watching and for you guys here. I would love to have you there. Please come. We're taking all of our small groups and telling them to meet us there. It's really important. We're going to pray for unborn children, of course, but we're also going to pray for mothers in crisis situations who feel as if they don't have anywhere else to turn but this. So we want to pray for them. We want to reach out and talk about ways that we can love on those guys and let them know there's hope, that they don't have to do that. Also, we want to pray for our churches, that they would know how to get involved and how to minister to these young ladies before we ever get to the place where they're considering abortion and things like that. And we want to pray for our government, that they would do the right thing, that they would set policies in place and legislation in place that would acknowledge what we already know, and that's that a child in the womb is a person made in the image of God, and that they have worth and value just like we do, and they deserve to be protected just like we do. So that's this Wednesday night. First Baptist Church Landrum starts at 6:30. So please come and be a part of that. Okay, let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you so much for all that you do for us, God. We thank you for a great church service this morning. The praise and worship was awesome. We lifted your name up, and that's so much fun, but it's also so warranted, God, because you are worthy. And Lord, if you didn't do a thing for us, you would still be worthy, God, because you are in and of yourself magnificent. your majesty is undescribable, and we come before you even now just in awe of who you are and what you've done. God, we give you honor tonight as we join together to talk about and to think about and to search the scriptures and in pursuit of what you call us to within this thing called marriage, Lord, in this relationship where we give ourselves wholly to our wife or to our husband. And God, we want to know what you say about that. We want to know how we can honor and glorify you in this relationship called marriage, God. And we ask that you would be with us tonight in a supernatural way, that you would teach us by the Holy Spirit through your word, God, that we would have good discussion, Lord, that we would have your presence here guiding us and leading us every step of the way, and that everything said would be to honor and glorify you. We give ourselves to you in Christ's name. Amen. Well, last week we talked a good bit about complementarianism, and I thought it was a really good discussion. We talked a lot about the roles of men and women. We talked about how both men and women are created in the image of God. We find that in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. He says that in his image he made him, speaking of man, and it said he made man in his likeness and in his image. In his image he made them both male and female. We see inherent worth and equality in personhood in both men and women. And we talked at some length about the different functional roles within that relationship and within that created order. And this week we want to just talk a little more practically about how those roles look and how men and women are really they're just different. A lot of the times in the pursuit of equality and the recognition of mainly the argument, especially nowadays, is that women are equal to men. And you see the fight and the pursuit of this type of equality, which, to be fair, classical feminism is not a bad thing. Classical feminism was the pursuit of inherent equality and ontological equality of the woman, meaning that she's not less of a person. It's kind of like when speaking of slavery, American slavery. The reason that slavery was an issue was that it dehumanized individuals who were created in the image of God, and it really moved in the vein of they are less than human, to really just animals, or maybe a little higher than the animals. And so feminism and slavery and things like that kind of moved in that same vein of trying to distinguish and to recognize that those of a different race are just as human, completely equal, that women are equal in worth and in value, and they have all the same rights, they have all the same worth, they have all the same dignity, and we want to lift them to the place that God has created them and give them every opportunity that God has afforded them, as well as equal heirs to the throne through Christ, and so on and so forth. And so we see this push in classical feminism to give women that same equality, and we say amen to that. We want to do that too, and I think that Christians were a major part of that push. And you see women being able to vote, and women being able to work, and women being able to do all of these things. And so we wouldn't deny that. The problem is that modern feminism is not the same as classical feminism. Now it's kind of like feminazism. It really is. And it's really now feminism, modern feminism, is the counterpart to chauvinism, when it wasn't that to begin with. So I don't want to rehash all of that, but to understand that complementarianism at its base and at its root and at its foundation says that men and women are completely equal as far as worth, value, and dignity, but that God just created them differently to fulfill roles that had to be fulfilled. And I would go so far as to say, even within the roles, the importance of the roles are equal as well. So we're talking about complete equality, just difference in the way that they're laid out, the way that they're made, and the role that they have and that they have been given, the way that they've been built. That's what we're going to talk about today. So a lot of what we'll talk about today will be built out of this and drawn on this book right here. This is an old book. Okay, well, this is the study guide, but there's a book that goes along with it too, if you can see it there. It's called Waffles, Men are like waffles, women are like spaghetti. Waffles and Spaghetti by Bill and Pam Farrow. It's a pretty old book, and it's a little corny at times, but it does a really good job at drawing distinctive lines between the way a man is made and the way a woman is made. Now, today, as in the name of equality, we're pursuing these lines that would say things like there is no difference between a man and a woman. But anybody with half a brain seemingly would say, well, that's crazy. But people are so sold out to an ideology and to an agenda that they have to disregard apparent differences and obvious differences in the name of an agenda or a purpose or a drive, okay? So, and everybody does that sometimes. The right does that. The left does that. Everybody does that. They get on a hobby horse and they want to beat it to death and they want to follow that out no matter the consequences all the way through. So, again, we want to get to the place where we're balanced. And I'll say this, and we'll move into this, is that what I've found in my pursuit of Christ and understanding Scripture and understanding theology and just life issues, okay, things that I want to understand with my mind, what I've found is that 9 times out of 10, the truth is in the middle. The truth is usually in the middle. Now, I do believe that there are black and white objective truths. I'm not saying that, but what I found is that when you have someone who's extreme on this side and they've really got a passion for something, and then you've got someone on all the way on the other side and they've really got a passion for something, oftentimes you really probably don't want to be to the far left or to the far right. There's probably a place somewhere around the middle that's going to be better, more than likely. Now, that's not always the case, but a lot of the times that is the case. And so I think complementarianism does that with complete equality on ontological issues, worth, value, importance, what they bring to the table, but only functional differences with terms to what God has called you to do, what God has called me to do, and how He's equipped us and how He's made us to fulfill those roles. So, with that being said, we're going to look at some of these differences and how these guys lay it out and break it down a little bit. I'll give you the premise of the whole book, Waffles and Spaghetti, and the idea, and I think you'll start to see
Let me do that. I can do it with this.
what we're looking at. Okay, you go ahead.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got to get a little lipstick on it.
That's for you.
There's one up there with lipstick all over it already. I should have got you that one. Oh.
At the very beginning of history, God said, "Let us make man in our image after our likeness." So God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him, male and female. He created them. That's from Genesis 1. It was in God's plan to make men and women different from each other from the moment He imagined us. The original plan was to use these differences as a starting point for building intimate, fulfilled relationships. But in our sin-filled world, what started out as an advantage has become a frequent source of frustration. It's possible to make too much out of the differences between men and women, but it's also possible to make the opposite mistake. If you want to have relationships that add to your life rather than make you exhausted, it seems to us that the place to start with is an understanding of the uniqueness each gender brings to the relationship. So that's where the basis of Waffles and Spaghetti come from. So women are like spaghetti. They're interconnected. Everything kind of goes on each other. You don't have an idle thought. But with guys, it's more like waffles, and you are compartmentalized. So when you're in that one box, you don't think of anything else. And so it's really hard for guys to follow us in conversation sometimes because we jump and go all over the place, and they're like, well, wait, we were over here. So
as a thought experiment, and not to cut you off, but as a thought experiment to demonstrate what she's saying, and this was asked in our premarital counseling, okay? And it was put forth like this. There was a study done in which they studied all of these different women. I can't remember the numbers, and I won't even try. But they went around and they asked the ladies, and let me ask you, of you wives out here that you've been married for a little while, I wonder if you've asked this question of your husband. You've asked this question. You said, your husband's sitting there, and he's just like this. Anybody ever seen your husband like that? Okay. Have you ever asked him this question? What are you thinking about? Yeah. Has he ever given this response? Oh, nothing. Has it ever frustrated you? Okay. Do you know why it frustrated you? Because you think he's lying. You know why? Because now this study was done, can't remember the numbers, but all of these women were asked, has there ever been a moment in your life where you were sitting or standing or whatever, and you got lost in a thought of nothing? See, listen, that's the response. By show of hands, how many of the ladies in the room have ever had a moment where they just zoned out and completely thought of nothing for an extended period of time? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's more than I've seen, and that's very rare. Most ladies say that they never have a moment where their mind stops or shuts off or is disconnected from reality. But here's the question. But when you space out, do you space out and actually think of nothing, or are you spaced out from the present conversation because you're thinking about all these other things? So, not a moment where you're thinking about things that don't matter. That's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about a moment when you're absolutely thinking about nothing, just like, duh. Okay, well, for the most part, most women, that's an absolutely foreign idea to them, okay? They have all of their thoughts running together all of the time, and this is why it's hard. And I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves or off track, but this is why it's hard for men and women to have conversation, especially when they get past the courting and the dating stage. Because in the courting and the dating stage, you have new things to talk about, and you don't mind just talking for no reason. She has opportunity to just run wild in a sea of endless thoughts that go nowhere. And you're so smitten that you're okay with it. It's okay. Oh, yeah, I love you so much. Just talk. Well, after a while, and it may be, and this is actually legit. I know that's kind of funny, but this is legit, and a lot of couples really get hit really hard after, say, especially if they've had a short courting time. They get married fairly quickly. The whole first year might just be that, oh, I just love to hear you talk. But after about 6 months, after a year and a half, it's just like, please, shut up. Or tell me what you mean already, you know? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the way men and women are built differently. And I want to talk about this compartment. Okay, so men are like waffles. The big word for that they use, and I like it, is called compartmentalization, meaning that men are not like that. Men have all of their thoughts, most men have all of their thoughts neatly organized into different compartments, into different boxes, okay? So a man, unlike a woman, absolutely, and their boxes that are metaphorical boxes are actually many times in the shape of a box too. Think of what your husband is into. It's usually in the shape of a box. Think about a football field, okay? Think about a television. Think about a bed, okay? Think about all these things. He's a house, a building. He's got boxes, and he can disc. This is why ladies are often frustrated when talking to their husbands, and their husbands don't seem worried about things that they're not presently thinking about. I don't know about you, but my wife oftentimes gets frustrated with me because I'm not worried about that thing that's 3 days, 3 weeks down the road, and she's already there, and I'm not there yet. Or something that may even be in the present time, but not in the present place. So there may be something going on at church, but when we get home, whereas I can go from the church box to the home box, and I left this box here, and I moved out of that box. I drove down the street, and I got in another box. Hers is still tied together. Does that make sense? And so it can be frustrating to her. But it also can be frustrating to me because I'm like, why are you still worried about that? That was 2 hours ago. And we don't have to think about that until we go back over there to that box. You see what I'm saying? So, like, when I come home from work, I leave my stuff at work. Okay, now, it doesn't always work that way. You know, sometimes this box invades that box, and that's really hard for me, right? It's really, I want a box at a time, and I get very overwhelmed. She, on the other hand, has a much greater capacity, and I'll let you speak to this. She has a much greater capacity to interconnect all the different areas of our life. And that's why I know a lot of the times the guys do the bills and all that kind of stuff, and hey, that's great. However that works for you, I think just whatever works best. If she's gifted that way, if you're gifted that way, sometimes it works best, sometimes it doesn't. But as far as scheduling, all that, making sure different bills are paid on different dates, this one's due and this one's that, I can't do, oh my gosh, that just, even thinking about it just gives me like heebie-jeebies, you know? But now she can connect those things together, and she helps keep me on my game. So talk a little bit about how everything's interwoven and how everything touches everything else.
I just think one of the big things is multitasking, like with women, not just with like actual physical things, yes, with physical things, but also with thought processes. So a lot of our thoughts are connected. Even one issue, there's lots of different aspects of that same issue going on in our mind. Maybe logically, emotionally, whatever. It's all just kind of connected and going at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, here's another thought experiment. Here's something that you can think about in a distinction. Let's take that thought right there and see if we can draw a distinction. And now, just know that this is generally speaking. It's not going to always be one-to-one across the board. But since men are more compartmentalized and they can separate out their mind in different ways. And does everybody agree that generally speaking, that's how we're made differently? And women are more emotionally connected. Let me try to draw a connection here. Have you ever wondered why the school system is almost primarily female teachers? Have you ever wondered why it seems to be that the best way for it to be laid out in the home is that the ladies would be the primary caregivers to the children? What was you laughing at? Oh, really? Well, let me, and for the most part, is it not usually that the ladies, they take care, in the school system, they take care of the day-to-day systems and interacting with the children and doing all of these things, but a lot of the times you have a male principal. It's not always that way. I had a female principal when I was in school, and she did a great job. Speaking in general terms, and why would that be? Think of war. Think of military, okay? Almost across the board, your generals are going to be men, and there's not going to be very many women in those positions. And if they are, they're going to be somewhere else doing some other type of task. Now, is that because, not always, generally speaking, why would that be? Is it because the world is sexist? Maybe some people are sexist, and maybe some women are overlooked. But could it be that there may be a reason that it's like that? And I want you to think about this. I heard this story, and I don't want to go into too much detail. But there was a general in the Army at one point in one war, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but he had to make an amazingly hard decision. He had intel that there was going to be a bombing on a city that was going to devastate thousands and thousands of lives and destroy thousands of innocent lives if that enemy was to drop bombs in their fighter jets onto that city. Now, the problem was if he was to intervene, now he was getting secret intel that the enemy did not know he was getting. This is a real situation. He was receiving intel, secret intel, on the enemy army that he found out that they were going to do this bombing. Now, if he intervened and he stopped this bombing from happening, he would save thousands of lives, 10 to 20,000 lives, okay? But that would mean that when he gave away the fact that he was getting intel, then because there was a much bigger move coming, when he gave away the fact that he was getting secret intel and saved 20,000 lives, it would mean that he would risk losing the war, which would then risk 1,000,000 lives. Are you following so far? Now, that general is able to put everything in its own little box and almost completely disassociate all of his emotions within that decision, and to be able to make an objective decision that would call for something horribly tragic in order to get the bigger part done. Now, I'm not going to say a woman couldn't do that. But from my experience in my personal relationship, it's way easier for me to disassociate myself from the emotional attachment of a situation and do what needs to be done in order to keep the bigger picture within the scope of what we need to do. Does that make sense? And so as far as disciplinary actions, even on a smaller level, disciplinary actions, setting strategic guidelines for our family, enforcing things, it's easier for me to make those decisions because I can detach, whereas oftentimes my wife is really intertwined. Now, that's not 100% across the board. I know some ladies that wouldn't mind making that call at all. You know, nuke them, we're going to save them. You know, I'm not saying that it's that way all across the board. But what I'm saying is that there seems to be a very real distinction and a design difference within men and women, so that men are very often geared and designed to be a better leader in those types of instances than a woman is. You want to speak to that?
Well, I mean, it may be in those types of instances, but I think there are other ways when women lead in different ways similarly.
Absolutely. Come at me, dog. Let's do it.
I'm not saying it like that.
Give the other side of it. That's okay. That's why you're here.
Lost my train of thought. Hang on. I was just going to say, it's really hard for me to not be emotionally attached to something, or I have a hard time personally with our relationship, that's definitely true, because I'm not as logical minded as he is when it comes to things like that. So I feel like men are more logical, women are more emotional. Men are more aggressive, and women are milder. You know, those are just traits that we have typically.
Amen. Now, lest some of you ladies in here be like, that ain't me. You know what I'm saying? You know, I can make decisions, you know. Listen, let me say, so that I don't make it out to be like, see, this man is awesome. He did what that woman couldn't do. Okay? Well, let me show the other side of that and why this is not a bad thing. This is a beautiful thing, because there are many, many situations where the emotional, intrinsically woven mindset saves the day from an idiot like me. Okay? So in situations where I have drawn too stark of a line between emotions and what needs to be done, she helps me to see that I am wrong and that I need to be corrected. And we submit to one another in some regards. That's real. You don't need to deny that, because there's been instances where I've been a general to my children when they needed me to be a daddy who loved them and looked past their flaws and their sin and loved them and embraced them and was able to get outside of that box and draw from my emotions and draw from my past experiences, draw on all of these different things that didn't ever even occur to me. And Heather's like, listen, have you thought about this? And I didn't. I was in the box of being a disciplinarian, and I had moved away from the box of being this, emotionally caring, compassionate, merciful person and embrace. So where the general may be good at making the hardcore decisions and separating himself from his emotions, oftentimes when dealing with different people and in different situations, it is greater to be interconnected and intertwined and emotional so that you can have the best effect on the people that you're ministering to in that moment. Does that make sense? And so one's not greater than the other. They're just different. And again, I don't want to keep, going back and propping up my words, but these are general observations from the way that God seems to have made men and women. There are great female leaders out there. I wouldn't take anything away from that. But it seems to be generally true that men are compartmentalized and they can make decisions in a different way. And this why don't we say it this way? When a female can make those type of decisions, does she not have more masculine type qualities? We would say that. We would say that she is a leader in such a way that she puts many men to shame. You might want to say it somewhere like that. So, and that's not a bad thing. God made everybody different, but generally speaking, it seems to be that way. Now,
the big thing is that we complement each other. Where one person's weak, the other one's strong. And so that's the whole waffles and spaghetti idea, is that we complement one another. And then one of the things that goes along with this is that when I start talking, he starts problem solving. So if I come to him or I call him or, whatever, it's like there's immediately a problem and he's got to fix it. And that's one of the things that the waffles and spaghetti study kind of brought out. And that's hard because I'll start talking and all my thoughts are intertwined and he just starts jumping boxes. And that's hard for guys to do. And sometimes they shut down because of that. So in some ways, he needs to just know sometimes there's not a problem. He just needs to listen. Like, I just want him to listen. Like, this is what happened today. There's nothing you can do about it, but I just want you to know. I just want somebody to talk to about it.
But see, when the phone
I can
rings,
use it to my advantage because I know that he will try to problem solve for me and take care of it.
The problem is that that's a setup from the word go. It really is. Listen, she and I have talked about this, and she forgets sometimes, but I'm like, listen, I'm a really stupid guy. I'm like, when you call me, when we talk, when we sit down, just know that the way I'm built is an engineer, problem solver, try to figure out the where this conversation is going so I can get there first and I can figure out why we're going there and we can have a solution when we get there, right? That's my wheels start turning immediately. And sometimes that makes whatever problem, I'm already assuming there's a problem. It makes the situation worse. Because where there was no problem, I've now created a problem because I'm trying to fix a problem that doesn't need fixing because there wasn't even actually a problem, So I've told Heather, I said, listen, when you call me and you want to just chase a noodle, that's fine. Just let me know we're noodle chasing and we're not problem solving. And this was some great practical advice. If you want some great practical advice, and now some of you may be different. You may be flipped a little bit, and maybe, the guy has more of an issue with just wanting to chase noodles than the girl. I don't know. I mean, maybe y'all just different. But usually it's the woman wanting to chase a noodle, and the man's trying to sit there. And watch how this can be frustrating to both people. So the lady, the wife, she's wanting to just unravel her noodle, okay? She's wanting to just talk. She does not want to be fixed. There's lots of noodles, and she doesn't want to be interrupted. She just wants to run in the flowing breeze of noodles, and she needs to be able to do that. She needs to be able to let it out somewhere, right? So she needs to be able to do that. But the guy doesn't know we're on a noodle chase. He thinks we're in a problem-solving case of tic-tac-toe. And so what he's trying to do is find the specific box that he needs to be in to bring about the best solution to this problem, and that way we can get back to the chilling box, because that's our favorite box, right? We want to get to the chilling box where you don't got a problem, I don't got a problem, and we're chilling, okay? We can bring the Bible into that box and hang out, play video games in that box. We can do these things. But we think there's a problem. So what happens, watch this, is that while she's running, and her noodles are nuts, they're crazy, they're everywhere. So her noodle might take her from paying bills to raising children to the boys' grades, all the way over to Ella Ray's hair bows are lost under the thing, and I've just bought that outfit and it doesn't even fit. We're back way over here. Taxes got to be paid. Did you call that guy about the plumbing? Oh, yeah, the pool. Is the fence in yet? And I'm going, no. I've jumped 18 boxes and I have not hit one yet, right? It's like a landmine. And I'm like, no, I can't. And to me, so here's what, both people are frustrated too. Because as she's chasing a noodle, I'm going, hold on, stop. Let's talk about that for a second. She's already this. Oh, okay, hold on. And she's wanting to run a noodle, and I'm always stopping her. I'm wanting to solve a problem in this box, and she keeps on going, right? It's Yeah, that can be brought into this conversation. Absolutely. Absolutely it can. So, Barbara, bring that up back in just a minute. Let me finish what I'm saying. I got you. Well, let's come back to that in just a second, and we'll give the mic to you so you can ask it so that the audience that's on Facebook can hear it too. So you've got this situation where the woman's just wanting to kind of run free, and then you got the guy wanting to stop her every 5 seconds. Go, hold on a second, we hadn't addressed that. Hold on a second, we hadn't addressed that. So what if you tried this? What if knowing now, and I don't know if you guys have ever put that thought together in your mind. What if knowing now, at least being able to verbalize and kind of describe and think about how she works and how he works, generally speaking, what if you helped each other out and said, before you came to that conversation, if she wants to just run a rabbit and me not stop her, and she's done this before, and we've done well at this, and we've done not so well at it, we do well at it, she come to me and say, listen.
But you're honestly getting a little bit better at recognizing that, too.
Yeah, and it comes with practice. You will actually how many of you practice being a good husband? I'm serious. I'm not joking. How many of you practice being a good husband? You need to practice being a good husband. And ladies, you need to practice being a good wife. I mean, we study to get better at school. We study to get better at work. We practice our jobs so that we can do it better. We recognize mistakes we made, and we don't want to make those anymore. We want to please our bosses. I mean, what relationship in our lives could be more important to pursue after being a better husband or a better wife? We really do need to do that. But we want to be intentional about this. And this will solve many, many, many problems and keep a bunch of problems from happening. So if she comes to me and she says, Brandon, listen, can I talk to you for a minute? And I don't want you to fix anything. I don't even have a problem. I just want to talk.
Sometimes there is a problem.
Yeah, sometimes there is a problem.
But you don't need to fix it.
Yeah, she can even tell me. Yeah, that's good. Good insight. Talking to the mic. That's good insight. Tell him what you just said, for real.
I just said sometimes there is a problem, but I don't need him to fix it. Like, I just want to vent about it and let him know about it, but I don't want anything to be done about it, at least right then anyway. I just, and he, yeah.
And let's be clear.
And not that there's always a problem, but yeah.
That takes a sacrifice from me. You understand that? You might say, well, you're being overly dramatic. No, listen, I'm a problem solver. It's my call. It's what I want to do, especially with my wife. I want to make sure she's okay. I want to solve that problem. But sometimes the best thing for me to do is to not try to solve the problem. So it's a sacrifice for me to say, okay, Brandon, don't try to do this. Just offer support, offer love, offer her whatever she needs when she's ready for it, and just be there for her. And so the big idea is just being upfront with each other, being honest with each other, and you say, listen, I've got a problem, but I don't need you to solve it. I just need to get it out. And then the man being willing to say, okay, that's what I needed to know. Let's go. And at least that way you're on a noodle chase, and you're not jumping. You can get in your noodle chasing box. Make a box, and you can make boxes. You can. Now, it might take a while to build a box, but you can actually make a box, and you should, okay? Make a box for listening to the wife, and go get in that box and be like, okay, babe, I'm here with you. And practice at that listening. Now, sometimes, though, she can come to me and say, listen, I have a problem, and I need you to help me to get to a solution. Okay, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's talk about it. And then we can talk about possible solutions, and I can help her, and she can help me to understand that. And sometimes I need to be able to come to her and say, listen, I want to talk to you about something without her running all over the place. And if your husband wants to come and talk to you about the house or about his job or about something like that, stay in that box with him. See how we can help each other. So we can chase noodles with our wives and know we're doing that and be okay and let her get it all out. But ladies, also be ready to go get in a box and know that men love boxes.
Sometimes it's not just a, like, talking box, I guess, or whatever. It could be their hobby box.
Wow, I was about to say that, I promise.
So, like,
garage.
Well, you don't work in the garage.
Well, I was
I'm
thinking about the
real,
example
like,
they
with us.
used. Okay.
So he's been doing some rock work, like, around our pool. So he usually does it when I'm not there. But if he was doing it whenever I was at home, then I should purposefully stop what I'm doing, at least at some point, and just go spend some time down there with him in that box.
Yeah, so we had a big blow up about this, 4 months ago. It was back when we were doing the pool. You don't even remember. See how important I am to her. No, she had come home, and I had worked really, really hard that day to get I'm building a little pathway from the pool over, and I'd worked really hard that day to get the wall.
Did you hear that was 4 months ago, and we're still going? Like, not even
No, I
close to
just
halfway
remember.
there?
Oh, yeah. That is taking forever. We made progress this week, though, didn't we, Ron? But I had spent a long time, and I felt so good about this particular part of the rock that I had finished up, and I thought it looked really good. And when Heather got home, I was excited for her to see it, because I want to get it done for her, for us, and I was excited. We made some progress. And I met her at the car, and I was like, you got to come see this, I did all this work. She's like, I'll look at it in a minute, and just walked in the house. I'm like, that was messed up. And so I waited patiently. She still didn't care to come look at it. And then when she looked at it, she said she liked it, but she had all these critical remarks about it. I'm like, are you serious? And I had worked so hard. I just needed for her that day to say, thank you so much for doing this work.
You needed words of affirmation.
Yeah. I got needs too, But she didn't catch it. She was needing to get in that box for a minute and love on me where I was and what I was doing. And so, a lot of times that's hard for a wife, because a wife, she's got so many things going on and everything's so interwoven together that she doesn't feel like she's got time to stop and get in one box. As a matter of fact, and I won't call any names, and they're not in here, so it's okay, but I know one couple that if that man stops to get in a box, she gets really upset, and it's really hard because she thinks that if you're not doing something in every different area all the time, then something wrong is going on, and it makes it really hard to rest. It makes it really hard to get into this place. It makes it really hard. So you better be careful, because if you don't watch out, you will be so consumed with who you are and how you're made that you will absolutely ignore the needs of the other. Hold on. Okay, you say it, and I'll repeat it. What's the appropriate time? Sure. What's the appropriate? No, it's a good question. Good question. So the question is, what is the appropriate amount of time that a woman should spend in the box with her husband in order to fulfill that need, maybe, or that the husband should spend in the box with the wife chasing spaghetti noodles to fulfill that need before they can kind of bow out and get out of that? Well, I would answer that, and I'll let Heather speak into that too. I would answer that with, I think, 2 caveats.
I think it's different. It depends on what it is and how much time you have at that time.
You're reading my mind. I'm going to say something very similar. I would say that it depends on 2 things. I think number one, it depends on how long have you been ignoring your husband's boxes and how long has he been ignoring your noodles. There very well may be a situation where now we're just talking about real life. Now, did you see how they got real in a real big hurry? There very well may be a situation in the room, oftentimes in our relationship, where I can be so consumed with my own personal desires and the way that I'm made that I could have been ignoring her and her needs for days, weeks, months, years. And what happens is that as you get into your head that the only thing that matters is what matters to you, then you build a wall between you and your spouse that said, and written on the backside of that wall is, I don't care how God made you. I'm going to do me, and you just do you. Now, the reason I say that is, go ahead.
I just feel like a lot of times, and I think we've said this in here before, but most of the problems are from selfishness or not putting the other one before yourself, which is selfishness. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like most times, maybe not every time, but most times it comes back to that.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Watch this. Let me walk this out. Hold on to it, though. Okay, how many of, and I'll put feet to that. So watch how this works. So if I've been belittling her or ignoring her or doing my own thing for a while, there was a period there for a while where I got hooked on a video game of all things, and I was spending all my time on the video game and ignoring her.
It goes in phases.
It does go in phases. Or we can go back even farther. When the Lord changed my life, there was a long period of time before that, our whole relationship, where I had hurt her, and it was all me, right? Well, when I proposed to Heather, she knew that the Lord had changed my life. She's like, there's got to be a year where you're proven. Think about this. Does your husband ever does he ever catch the I'm sorry, please forgive me bug? I'm going to be a great man of God and study the scriptures with you and pray with our family bug. I know I catch that bug sometimes. He'll come home with this great plan, and the wife's like, yes, man of God. And then he falls off, and he doesn't do it, right? And then he comes back, and he's like, man of God bug, falls off. Man of God bug, falls off. So he starts to get in this rhythm where you're like, yeah, right. You start laying bricks on that wall. You're thinking about you.
It was the same thing. That's a better bug, I think, that you could get. But, like, in some things. But, before God had changed your life, it was I'm going to do better bug. You know, and it was never.
Yeah, put whatever you want as the bug. I'm going to listen more bug. I'm going to be, I'm going to be home more. I'm not going to play the video game bug. Whatever it is. Because your man usually knows what your needs are. He's just ignoring them. Sorry, guys. I had to reveal you. Sometimes he doesn't.
They can't read our minds. And
we're getting to you guys,
and we need to communicate that to them.
We're getting to you guys. You guys are sneaky. So to answer that, and so that we can move, I would say it depends on how long the boxes have been ignored and how long the spaghetti's been ignored. Because what you might find is that words are cheap, and you need to say, okay, I'm going to come spend time in your box, and it might be 30 minutes in the box, it might be an hour in the box, it might be 10 minutes. But the question is not how long you stay in the box for that amount of time, but do you come back and do you really appreciate the box, or was you just trying to get something that you wanted and you thought that getting in the box might serve you? And so, not saying that you, but for anybody, whether a guy or a girl, man or wife, is that are you getting in the box because you want something from him, or are you getting in the box because you really do love him and you want to know him and you want to serve him more? And do you go back the next day and then the next day?
The day that it hurt your feelings, I could have given 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes, and had a positive attitude about it. And
it wouldn't even needed to be 2 minutes. She could have come down there, looked at that wall, and said, "Babe, that looks awesome. Thank you so much." And I'd have been like, the truth of the matter is, and she will deny this on days when she's mad at me, but the truth of the matter is that it really is in my heart to please her. I want this woman to I don't want her to, I want her to be exalted. Like my whole life is based around Jesus Christ and her. And I think she knows that. I think she does. But I don't want that to ever be words, and sometimes I don't show it. But I really do. Like, I would do anything for her. I mean, ask her how many times I say no. Ask her right now. No, really, ask her. I never say no. I never say, now, I have once or twice, but we was talking about that the other day. I don't say no to her so that when I do say no, she knows it's serious. But I don't. I want her to have everything, and I'll get extra jobs. I'll do whatever I need to do. I want her to be
sometimes it's
lifted up.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, it just depending on what it is, and it's not always materialistic things, but like sometimes it's not right this second.
Yeah, and I want her to know that. Now let's get her over to the other side too. Is that oftentimes women are nuts. They are. They're crazy. And the way their mind works doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, they are, Shanda. I'm telling you right now, they're just crazy. My wife, listen, here's a question for you. Here's a question for you. Has your wife ever asked you this? Okay, let's say this. You want to go change Ella Ray's diaper? What kind of question is that? See, that's a lie. You're not really wanting to know if I want to go change a diaper, because everybody knows I don't want to go change a diaper. There's no question. You know I don't. So what is this? What is this sneaky tactic? This is no question. This is a statement in the form of a question. It is. It actually.
Take it a lot better, and I said, Brandon.
No.
I said, Brandon, go change Ella Ray's diaper.
Why not say, would you go change her diaper,
in the
please?
form of a statement, like a command.
No.
But I could say it in a question. I could rephrase the question.
Watch it. You're missing the point.
The same thing.
You're chasing a noodle and missing the point. The point is that she did not convey what she wanted to convey the way she should have conveyed it. She just asked a question, will you go change a diaper? Oh, yeah, she got it done. She got it done because I've learned to speak Heatherese. That's the only, and you better learn to speak your wifey's too, because you're going to need to know. Here we go. Listen, wives, you could make your life so much easier by understanding that men cannot read your mind. Men cannot read the mind of women.
Sometimes it's just, why not? Like, that's the most logical
That usually doesn't have that problem.
Like, it's the most logical situation. It's the most logical thing, but no.
But listen. Yeah, that's right. A lot of the times, she's wondering why I didn't automatically know something in box A. When the reason I didn't know about the thing in box A was that I was in box H. And box A was the furthest thing from my mind because I was in box H. Now, when she lets me know and I climb over into box A, it's like, oh, well, yeah. But we've already got in an argument at this point because she was expecting me to know all about box A when I was over in box H, and she did nothing to help me to realize that we were talking about box A instead of box H. Does that make sense? Explain it.
Oh, that's totally me.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
You can make a decision to go to dinner like that.
Let's talk about the dinner for a second. Hey, watch this. What's that? Okay, that's a good question. Listen, okay, let's do that, and then we're going to go. Oh yeah, Robert's got one too. That's good, and I'll address that. We're having too much fun. So Barbara said, has she ever got into your box and you wasn't happy with her being in your box? Let me tell you the only time I'm not happy with Heather being in my box. If she comes to my box trying to tell me how to run my box. Don't come to my box trying to tell me how to run my box, okay? I don't go tell you how to adjust your noodles in the shape of a square. No, well, I might, but what I'm saying is she can look at me. I say, don't come to my box telling me how to run my box, and she sings from the other side, don't come to my spaghetti trying to put it in squares, right? So, and that's the whole sacrifice. Amber had a great question a while ago. How much time? It's a sacrificial thing, and this is where practice comes in, because really, to tell you the truth, it drives me nuts to chase spaghetti, but I've come to appreciate it more. Because I've come to realize that I'm not really chasing spaghetti. That kind of stinks. But I don't mind helping my wife. I don't mind loving my wife. So that if I can get past the, well, why do I got to chase spaghetti? You know, the whole poor, pitiful me. I don't want to. If I can get past my own selfishness and my own selfish desires and get into a place of sacrifice and love and just wanting to serve my wife, then chasing spaghetti is not too bad. And as a matter of fact, it leads to great box work, too. What are y'all talking about?
That box is for a different night.
What are y'all talking about? See, I know y'all got to get y'all's mind out of the gutters. Listen to me. When I say that, two things. One, don't go chasing spaghetti in order to make your boxes better. That's selfish, and that's that motivation, and she will spot that. And it will be another brick in the wall instead of tearing it down. You can't do that. And I'm guilty. I've done that before. And that's when it's found out to be fake, and it doesn't work. In the same way, don't go spend time in a box in order to manipulate him to make him do things with you and to come over and chase spaghetti that you never did want, that you wasn't worried about his box. You didn't care anything about his box. You just went there in order to get something for yourself. Selfishness and pride is the root of all of our problems. Motivations is absolutely paramount. Okay.
Well, Amber had asked about dinner.
Oh, dinner. We're just going to come back to that. Here, pause it and then say it again.
I was just going to say that a minute ago you said that oftentimes the truth sort of lies in the middle. And when she's communicating with you and you communicating with her, she helps you to see that truth that's in the middle sometimes. So that's really good. And I'll just say this too. A lot of what you're talking about, a lot of what you said was based on communication. And every couple study I've ever did is communication. And I'll just give you an example of how the boxes work. This week, me and my wife had I had a lot going on, or I had a lot planned that was in my boxes, but none of it was in her spaghetti. She wasn't included in any of the boxes, so I sort of neglected her. And she had to come back around and say, and she got frustrated with me. And then I got mad because I couldn't figure out why she was mad at me. You see how that happened? So I had something going. She was hurt. I'm sorry. I'm speaking for her. See, I messed up the spaghetti already. But she was hurt because I hadn't spent any time with her, and I was focused on so many other things that I had going on. And we had a whole week where I never spent a day with her. But we finally had got mad, and we didn't talk to each other for about 2 days because I shut down and I don't really talk, and she gets more frustrated with me because of that. But because I want to think about it before I say anything. So we finally stopped, and we started to communicate. And I wanted to just tell my side of it, you see. And she said, no, hold on a minute. Let me talk for a minute. And I knew it was a listening moment. You know, we'll figure it out. But she said, she showed me, she said, we've been doing this couple study, Robert. And I said, yes. I said, it's been great. She said, well, everything that I see is said, God should be first in our life, and then it should be our husband and our wives, and then so on down. And she said, this week you've only given me no's. Do you see that? And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. But the point I'm trying to say is we stopped and communicated so we could get through that thing that was holding us back. So if we'd, I agree with you. If she'd have communicated with me and said, hey, I'd just like to spend some time. Can you make time for me this week? Then I would have known that. But she wants me. The problem is she wants me to be able to figure that on my own. And we've been married for 23 years, and I messed that up.
That shows that you care if you make that time and make that priority. You know, like I feel like that's important. That we don't want to ask for time.
This has been a debate in our house and a debate with me and other wives too. Can I ask? Listen, let me ask this. I asked this to Chris. Chris and I have had this conversation. I've asked this to Heather. I think I talked to Mallory about it. A man does not think like you think. And I just think that it's unfair. Now, listen, I would love to be able to just, now some men got that gift. Some of them do have that gift, and I just don't. I was born without it. I can't see those connections and make them. Some men can. So I asked Heather this, and ladies, you tell me, okay? I asked Heather, I said, listen, will you please make me a list of things that you really love that would make you feel special? Make me a list of ways that I can serve you. Be detailed. Write it as if you were writing it to a third grader. That's how detailed you need to be. And me, I can get that list out, and I can love you all the ways and serve you all the ways that you would really need, that you would really like to be loved. You know her response? I shouldn't have to do that. You should already know. Well, listen, here's where I am on that. I say amen. I should. But reality is I don't. And if you won't make the list, then we're both kind of out of luck. So, the question is this. Could it not?
But I don't always know. Like, it's hard for me to make a list because I don't always know. You know, like, yeah, it's different. It's kind of like spaghetti. It just, you know.
Usually when she says, I need this, it's too late. She's mad because she hasn't got that. But here's what I would say about the list. If she made a list. Well, watch how this works. Go back to the love languages.
Valentine's is Thursday, just so you know.
Watch how that works all the time. I'm getting my mind messed up here because we're jumping boxes. You get me all messed up. But I want to address two things right here, and we're getting close to time. But, okay, what I was going to say was, why don't you know? So Chris said to you, why aren't you ever romantic? Heather said that to me before. And the whole list thing, let's go back to that for a second. So Heather says, why aren't you romantic? Why don't you think like these? But see, in my mind, and I am doing these things, but a lot of the times she is not aware or she's not receiving because I'm not speaking her language. Goes back to the love language deal. And a lot of the times I'm speaking the language that I hear and understand. I'm speaking my language. And so when she says, you've not shown me any love or you haven't done this, I can go down the list in my mind of all the things that I've done. And and I'm thinking, and I've told her this, if you would do the things for me that I do for you, I would feel like the most magical, amazing, wonderful husband in the entire world. And I'm doing these for you, and you don't even see it, you know. But that's why I say if she would write a list, it wouldn't really, Amy Jane, it wouldn't be about the specifics on the list for the specific times. What that would do is it would give me foundational principles of things that she likes like that, and I would have a base to run off of and do things that apply to these principles. Yes, and the answer a lot of the times has been, if I write it down, then you're not doing it out of your own love, you're doing it because I wrote it down. But what if I ask you out of love to write it down? Shannon says we don't need a list. But see, then it's coming out of my mind. Okay. You want this? Okay, now we're talking about two different things, I think. Now, what you're talking about is, okay, I get that. I can make that list. So we're talking about day-to-day. Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So that's
But
a
if you
good point.
didn't get them now that you've had them, what's going on? No? I would be like, what's up today?
Okay, let me make two differences, and then I'll say it down.
Oh, he stood up.
So the two differences that I see is that I'm not really talking about day-to-day tasks, and I think you're right. That's just a listening problem. So when Heather does, and I do have that problem too. I need to listen better. And you know, sometimes I recognize it, and so Heather will say, "Oh, we'll be out somewhere." She'll be like, "Oh, I like that," and in my male mind, I go, "Oh, I need to remember that because that's a good gift idea for this next thing that's coming up." And then I forget to take a picture or write it down, and that was my blunder. Day-to-day tasks, she's really good at reminding me about day-to-day tasks, and I can do those.
I can't send him to Twin Palmetto with the same thing that we get every
It's
time
my previous
without him
lifestyle.
saying, text me. Like, we just went over it. That's what we get every other week, and
See how hot she's getting?
In regards to making a list, Amber said, well, why should I write you a list if you get interested in a whatever, gun, whatever, you get to know that thing really well. Don't you love me? You've known me for 15 years. You should already know me. So that maybe I should study my wife like I would want the thing.
I think that's it. Do I? Dakota said, yeah, but a gun doesn't change. Well, all
that's a good
that
point, too.
here.
That's true.
that-
True.
That's true, but I think that all that means is that we have to be continually growing and changing with it, with our wives. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that Robert hit on a great point, and I think that Shanda backed that point up, is that, and I think that the list would be a good starter point. So I think, I think the bottom line is this, is that we really need to be concerned with communication. Communication involves listening too, not just talking. A lot of times we got two ears and one mouth for a reason. So we need to listen to those cues. Sure. Yeah. Well, that's actually a point that we always bring out too, is that ladies oftentimes would do really well. Yeah, and it's not just about listening. It's announcing, and it goes back to the boxes. You need to announce what box you're about to talk out of or what box you're about to talk into. So if this is the important, like, bulletin board box, are you listening? Because you need to be listening to what I'm about to say next. And oftentimes Heather will do that. And whatever box I'm in, yeah, well, that's good. She's learning me too. Whatever box I'm in, I stop doing that, and it's a lot of the times it's a literal box. I might be sitting at the kitchen table. I might be looking at a TV, watching it, or playing a game, or on the computer, or looking at my phone or something, and that box needs to be sit down, and I need to look and say, okay, I'm listening. And she can tell me that, and oftentimes I ask her to send me a text to remind me.
We talked about the communication thing. Like right now, we're sitting like this in that part.
Face to face, side by side. Okay. So to close out that whole communication thing, the dinner, I was about to say that right now. Did we discuss what you talked about a while ago? No, I said hold on to that for a second. What was it? Right, right. So what she's saying is that he might be jumping boxes too quick, and a lot of times that's usually not a problem in that direction. That's usually a problem in the other direction. You're just weird, Barbara. That's all I got to say. But I would say this is that I think the communication is key in that situation, and you would only need to say, Mike, can you share with me one thing at a time, and let's deal with that. And he might just be wanting to run a noodle, maybe he's just having a moment. He wants to run a noodle, and he just needs to say, listen, I don't really need you to fix the problem. I just want to talk to you for a minute. Well, and that might be that. Okay, now I see. Now I might see how that starts to shape out, and it might be, Barbara, that he's not jumping boxes. It might be your noodle that's the issue in that particular situation. Let me say it. Let me say why I think that. Let me say why I think that, and that just kind of clicked this in my mind. If Barbara, say he's in box A, okay, and he's having a conversation about that box. Let's say it's work. Let's put something with it. Let's say he's at work. And he starts talking about work, and he talks about another issue, but in his mind, that's why I'm thinking it's weird that he'd be jumping boxes like that. In his mind, it's connected to it somehow, and that he's still trying to figure out this one problem. But you're kind of thinking about all of these other things that may be connected, and thinking that he's went off to another box just because you kind of thinking outside the box and how it all might be related, and it might be causing some confusion too. Either way, listen to me. Either way, whether he's jumping boxes or you're chasing noodles, communication saves the day. Saves the day. So if you're thinking that he's going somewhere else, I think, I think this is missing in most all of our marriages. At least it's really put on the back burner. Is sitting down, and we're going to talk about this, and saying, listen, here's what I want to say to you, and here is what I need from you, and then start talking. And just instead of going, blah, 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 and the other person, whether it's the man or the woman, just trying to keep up and trying to figure out what it is you're actually trying to say, because, the whole little thing about, do you want to change Ella Ray's diaper? That's kind of cute and funny and all, but that's just a little bitty example of what happens on a larger scale all the time. You're saying something, but do you really mean what you're saying? Are you trying to convey something that really is not even being stated? It's something else entirely different, like the dinner thing, and then we can kind of transition. You ever have, I don't know you do, I don't even have to ask, you have this conversation.
But
and
they were saying it was opposite
opposite for you guys, but for us, and it might be opposite, Heather always says, where do you want to go for dinner? I'm like, I don't care. Where do you want to go? Now, let me say this. I'm being honest. I really don't care where we go. But her response almost every time is, I don't know, I don't care. Where do you want to go? Now, that's a lie.
I know where I don't want to go.
Okay,
but I don't
then.
know where I want to go.
Shoots up. Listen, that is a contradiction in terms. You just said, I don't care where we go, but I do know where I don't want to go. Well, that's caring where you go. No, we've gotten to that place, haven't we? We've gotten better because that's what we do. I say, okay, listen, I'll give you this list of options. You tell me what you're not going to do. And then when you get rid of the ones you don't want to do, I'll pick one. Because what's really frustrating, which is I don't care. And I'll say, all right, well, let's go to Subway. I don't want to go there. Okay, let's go to the Hare and the Hound. Too busy. I don't want to go there either. How about pizza? Side Street? Not feeling it tonight. Sereno, Mexican?
I never say that about Side Street.
Yeah,
just
you
so
don't. Yeah, Side Street's always a good choice. I guess that's a plug for Side Street tonight. But you see, you get it. She said, I don't care. Where do you want to go? And I'll name 5 different places, and she didn't want to go to any of them, But really, I don't care. We can't. But sometimes I guess I do care. Sometimes I'm just not feeling Mexican.
Well,
whatever.
sometimes he's like, I'm going to move for such and such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
at the end of the day, it's just communication. Just be straightforward. If you know where you want to go, and we've really started to have a good compromise on this because she doesn't really like making decisions, and it might be the other way around for you guys. I don't know, and I don't care to make a decision, so I'll say, listen, I'll tell you what, give me 4 that you will do, and I'll pick one. I don't mind doing that, and I really don't care where we go, so she can name any 4, and that way I know that she'll go to any of the 4. And that way I'm like, okay, number one.
Till you have
Amen.
3 kids that have their own opinions and they throw them in there too.
So, okay, let's transition now into this face-to-face, side-to-side. What time is it? Okay, we got about 10 minutes or so. Before we transition, any other questions or anything that you want to add? Anybody want to add or helpful insights maybe? Yeah. Here, hold on a second. People online want to hear.
I was just going to say that, a lot of times it's not, for me in our relationship, it's not that I'm not listening, but, and I don't want to call it selective hearing because it's not that I'm tuning her out, but in my defense, if somebody said, or she asked me, where's that microphone stand for whatever, I'm going to say right side of the drum set. Well, Amy would say, well, if you go down the aisle there, there's grooves and stuff like cut. You ever notice them grooves in the concrete? And then you go up those steps they got that black carpet. We ought to put that black carpet maybe like on our outdoor thing out there. In other words, and I'm like, oh, God. So where's it at? Well, when you go up around those drums, that man, boy, he is good on those drums, right? It's on and on, so it's not that we're not listening, but it's just like, get to the point, That's my take on that.
That's part of the following the spaghetti.
Yes, that's a great illustration of two different issues there. One, sometimes, Dakota, you need to be just cool with taking the trip down the aisle, following the grooves up around the black carpet, down around the drums where Matt's really tearing it up on over to this mic stand, right? And you need to be okay with that, and you don't need to be like, oh, God, tell me where it is, No. I get it. I need to do better about that too. But and this is a great illustration because right on the other side, sometimes, Amy, you just need to be like, it's right there beside the drum kit. And that's what we were talking about a while ago when Heather really would do herself well to announce what she's about to say. I'm serious. That might sound crazy, but listen, what I'm about to say is important. And it's just helping. I'll take the shot on that and say, yes, she's helping overcome one of my weaknesses. Because I do have a hard time listening. I can get into a box and not see anything else. I'm talking about if I'm reading, if I'm playing a game, if I'm watching a video on my phone, whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter. I can be looking in the refrigerator, and there can be chaos and fire and people, and I just looking for that thing that I was looking for. And Heather can be having a whole conversation to me. And we've got to this place now where Heather can be in the middle of a conversation and she has cues now. She realizes that I ain't heard one word. And this is the first sentence I hear from her conversation. You're not listening to anything, are you? And I go, sometimes I'll try to fake it to make it.
Sometimes I'm like, Brandon, what are you doing?
And I'll be like, oh, yeah, I heard you. And I did catch like 2 words. So I was like, you're talking about.
I teach psychology. I know that doesn't work.
But if she was to walk in that room and be like, hey, can you listen to me for just a minute? I have something that I'd like to tell you. Well, then, right? Doesn't that usually solve the problem on the front end of it?
Say that.
Yeah, if I hear you say that. Well, you might tap me on the shoulder. So anyway, communication is really key in understanding how a lot of that stuff works. Now, just a couple of minutes on this. And we need to talk about this some more next week because that's really good stuff. We'll set this up for next week. How about that? And we'll talk about this a little bit more next week. But a lot of this, too, can be avoided with face-to-face conversation instead of always living life side by side. Okay? Side by side is not bad. It's just not complete. Side by side living is actually a necessity. And let me define that just for a moment. Side by side living and side by side life is when we have to work together to accomplish tasks. okay? You do this with a teammate. And Heather is my teammate. She's my ultimate teammate, right? She's my other half. And we do a lot of stuff side by side. We raise the children side by side. We manage our house side by side. We manage life side by side. We make decisions side by side. We do life side by side. But if we're not careful, all of our side by side life will cause us to forget about the face-to-face life. We accomplish tasks side by side. We get to know each other and become intimate face-to-face. You see the two different types of relationships. You would do really well to realize that your relationship with your spouse is multifaceted. And if you do not take care of and facilitate all the different facets of your relationship, it will become weaker and it will grow stale. And those areas that you're neglecting, they will destroy the other areas that you're better in. You want to say anything? That was pretty good, wasn't it? That wasn't mine, but hold on.
Test. Okay. So, what's more frustrating than listening to your wife talk in noodle fashion is when she doesn't talk at all. Do you have the answer for that, Pastor?
Yes, actually I do. So, we'll go back, we'll go retro 1 week for you to answer that one. Remember last week, wasn't it last week? Not last week at Super Bowl, but the week before. Wasn't that the week when we talked about never 50-50? Okay. So there are going to be moments and seasons in life, and that's a good question. Everybody heard the question. What about when your wife doesn't speak at all? And it could be reversed and say, what about when your husband doesn't listen at all, or when your husband won't speak at all either? There. Right. I think that was still. So Lana says that she just grew up where she just sweeps things under a rug and just kind of, yeah. Okay. You just go on with it until there's a big hump under the rug. Well, I would still answer in the same way, even though that, because that's an issue, you need to work on and practice and so what I would say to that is that if you are in a relationship.
But sometimes it's really not that big of a deal. I mean, maybe if it's a big deal to your spouse, then you should talk about it. But sometimes it's just not that big of a deal. Like, I feel like things that we used to argue about, we would never argue about now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we can just sweep it under the rug and go on like nothing ever happened.
Well, okay. So let me address two things here. Let's address sweeping things under the rug, and let's address the importance of not sweeping things under the rug. You might think that's one thing, but
we'll talk about fighting fair.
Okay. But what I'm saying is this: sometimes it gets to a point where you're not fighting about the thing that was swept under the rug, but about the fact that you're sweeping things under the rug. Does that make sense? So it's the method, not the specific issue that's at hand. So in that case, I believe that a man has to do what Amber said a second ago, actually, and he has to become a James Bond spy. He has to become a masterful technician of finding out what the issues are with his wife. And that might be frustrating and it might not be fair, but life's not fair. And sometimes my wife is in a place to where she won't communicate. And she's frustrated about things maybe at work, and she's frustrated about things at home, and she's shut down.
But he doesn't want to hear it. Like, I mean, he doesn't really want to hear all that, so why talk about it?
Oh, Lord have mercy. What are we gonna do? Okay, so let me finish my train. Yeah, let me finish my train of thought. So I think that would solve both issues though. So if Mickey let me not make it Mickey specific. I want you to make it through tonight. If Brandon really was concerned, and it wasn't just, well, I don't want to see you mope around, I don't want to have to deal with this, but my heart was actually changed. Maybe I prayed and my heart was changed, and the Lord showed me that I needed to be concerned with her well-being and why it is that she felt like she couldn't come to me and why it is that she is moping around. And I ask Heather this question all the time, a lot of the times to, a slap in the face, not physically but metaphorically, is that, does she feel like the most precious woman in the world? That's a good question. Your wife should feel like the most precious woman in the entire world. And every man just feel like, oh, man. We really need to be asking ourselves, okay, well, let's ask this question, because Ephesians chapter 5 says, husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might wash her in the water of the word to present her in all of her splendor and beauty. Jesus Christ made much of the church through his death, through his sacrifice, through giving up everything. So, husbands, are we giving up everything to make sure that she is lifted up and shining for the diamond that she is? And if our wives are not feeling important and feeling value and precious, then that's an indictment on us in large degree. Now, sometimes it's just issues that it doesn't matter how amazing your husband is. The wife's just got issues, and she just needs prayer, and you just need to keep on pursuing her. And you need to be that magician, pursuing after how you can reach her, how you can do it, and she's your mission field. She becomes your mission field. And then sometimes she just needs to be able to openly communicate and stop doing that and just have open lines of communication. So it might be that sometimes you got to put forth 100% when she's only putting 1% or no percent, and it might be that way. You just got to pursue. But again, communicate, both of you.
I feel like with us sometimes it's just like, well, there was a situation at work, but you don't want to know the ins and outs of the situation at work. But for you to know that that's why I'm that way is helpful sometimes.
Yeah, and I think it would do both well, because she needs to understand, and I think I feel this with you, Mickey. I think I feel what you're talking about, because a lot of the times if she's walking around and she's got a problem, I feel like that it's my job. I want to help you with that problem. And if you won't let me know, then I feel like that you're keeping something from me that I might could help with. I feel like you might not trust me to help with that, or you might think less of me, like, oh, he can't help. He wouldn't be any help in this situation. You see, so a lot of times I just feel like that maybe I could help if you would let me know about that. So I would say if you're walking around and you got an issue and you've brought that home from work, let's do one of two things. Either let me know what's going on and preface it by saying, look, there's nothing really I don't think that you can do about it. I'm not looking for a solution. I just want to get it out there, and so it's out of me so I can just let it go. Or say, look, I've got a problem at work, and I'm wondering if you might could help me with it. Just don't say anything till the end, okay? And just let me get it all out. That way I would know.
You just don't really want to talk about it, but it's just got you.
Well, then I think that it would still. So instead of just not talking, communicate and say, I had some issues at work today. I'm okay. It's nothing that you did. I'm fine. I love you. I just had a bad day, and I don't really feel like talking about it. Is that okay? That might actually let him off the hook. He would just like to know, I'm okay. I'm going to make it. It's nothing that you need to deal with. You okay. I don't even need to talk about it. Works on both sides, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But if it's like a small argument or a small tiff or something like that, or something that used to, maybe it's a small tiff to us now that used to would have been a big blow up, like I feel like it's okay sometimes you don't talk about it. And, life is just like, not that you keep stacking them up, but that you just, you just go about life. And
I'm laughing because I'm just thinking of a specific instance. It wasn't that long ago that Heather and I I can't even remember if it was me wanting to argue or her wanting to argue, and we started to get into this argument, and one of us looked at the other one and said, is this really worth arguing about? And we're like, no. And it was just like, it completely got dropped. It's like, just walked away from it. You ever done that before? That's when you know you're in the more advanced years, and some people might get there quicker than others. Like, we start to go at it, and we're like, hold on a second. Is it like, we just have a conversation.
Exhausting.
Is it worth it? And she's like, she can be mad. She'd be like, no, forget it. You just go the other way.
It's 7:31, by the way.
I just need 1 minute. So I'm going to put a challenge out for myself and hopefully everyone else here. So I say this week after week when we're here, the two mega needs for men and women, we've been married 18 years, we've known each other for 24 years, is men respect, women's security, right? And in every household, there's a meter. Right now, in my household, Danielle's security meter is low because I haven't been doing things and speaking security and acting security into her life. So I'm going to throw out a challenge. You guys wanted a list? Here it is, all right? It just got filled out for you. We're going to trade these this week, and I'm going to study this week and do everything I can to fill her security meter back up. And women, do the same thing for his respect meter, because when those two needs aren't being met, I think that's where the problems start. So I'm going to throw that challenge out there for us. Amen? All right.
Actually, in this book, I don't remember if it was the
Who else
main
had
book
something over here?
or in this
Was it you?
participants guide. It has a love tank, and so it's kind of similar to that. And Amy Jane was talking about that this weekend. But are you filling their love tank? Is their love tank full or is it empty? Like that kind of idea.
I'm like Lana. I'm a non-communicator. I like to stuff things under the rug, but I think a lot of it is a safety issue for me. Like, it's been breached before, so it's kind of hard to come out from under that. But also, when I say something on how I'm feeling, I don't want to spend an hour talking about it afterwards, being a non-communicator. I just want to say it and move on.
Mickey said, I have a
Mickey,
hard time with that.
yeah. Lana says, well, Mickey and Dan just need to call each other. That's where the respect comes in. That's when the respect comes in.
Take it.
I was going to say something I've learned recently as I've tried to grow as a better husband to my wife and a better friend is one of the harder things for me, like Brandon was saying, men are problem solvers and women are typically more emotional, is knowing when to walk away and let them deal with that emotion by themselves and quit trying to fix it, because you end up creating more problems in the fixing process.
For me, I don't want to be by myself, though. Like, I mean, I feel like you have to know your spouse.
You will have to know your spouse.
I don't want to be by myself. Like, I'd rather him, we don't have to talk about it. Just put your arms around me.
I'll give you an example which blows my mind. You want to see a man's short circuit? Well, they can just turn it off. Okay. Last thing I'm going to say. You completely got me out of my box.
I know what you're going to say.
What? Tell me so I can remember. Tell me so I can remember.
Like whenever you're the reason for my being upset, but yet I want you to.
Oh, yeah. That is it. She's a mind reader. I can't do that. How you do that? That's crazy. Get out of my head, woman. So, okay, this is amazing to me. So, like, Heather and I can get into a blow up, right? I mean, like snarl and, blow up.
Not nearly as often as.
Yeah, not as often as, but we can still have some doozies. And here's the crazy thing. It's not even quite over yet. And this is hard for me. But she can be laying there in the bed and she's just mad and fuming. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, just put your arms around me.
I don't say that. I don't want to say it. I will be stubborn and will not say that.
But I've asked her. But I do know by now. But
he
it
knows that's
feels
what he
so
needs to
wrong. Like, listen, I'm the reason you're mad. I'm the reason you're mad, and you want me to hug you because that's not me. Like, if
but
I'm mad at you, I'm like,
like,
yeah, but I'm like, listen, better leave me alone. But listen, and I have learned, I'm doing better at that. I have learned, but it's usually like this. Like, if Heather's really mad at me and I'm really mad at her and she still wants me to hug her, like, I don't, but I'll be like this. Hey, it's an attempt.
I call it a dead arm. Like,
She
it's
be like,
a dead arm.
and it'll make it worse. She'd be like, just get the dead arm off. How many times? Oh, I love you so much. Okay, so let's talk more next week about face-to-face.
Not next week. We have Not So Newlywed Game next
yeah.
week. We'll be back on
Week
the 24th.
after next. Let's talk more about, and this will be good. Let's talk more about face-to-face versus side-by-side communication. Let's take Matt's challenge to look over and really study up on the love languages. Find out what makes your wife tick. Find out what makes your husband tick. And as we've seen in here, a lot of the things that are really kind of specific to me are specific to some of the ladies. And some of the ladies are flip-flopped around. You really have to be intentional and specific and pursuing of your spouse to figure out how they feel loved. How do they communicate? What do they like? What do they not like? And this goes both ways, husbands and wives. And husbands with a focus on making sure that your wife feels secure, that you love her, that she's important, that she's special. And ladies, that your husband feels absolutely respected. Find something to compliment him about, let him know you trust him. Even if you don't, find a way in a lot of areas. Find the areas that you do trust him and highlight those, and you will watch a man change, I promise you. And love your wives and find out and pursue her in the way that she needs to be loved, right? Let's pray.
Hang on.
Okay.
Everybody thank all the child care workers back there. And Dustin and Mallory were here to be in here tonight, and I've noticed that they're back there. So an extra special thank you to them.
Yeah, and if we could get some more help on Sunday nights for child care for the marriage series, it would be greatly appreciated. Not you guys, but talk to some of those guys out there. Help us. All right. Lord Jesus, we thank you for showing us, leading us, and guiding us, and showing us exactly what a husband should be, and showing us exactly what a wife should be. And I pray, Lord Jesus, that you would help us to walk in your word, to be led by the Spirit, and to fulfill everything that you've called us to fulfill to one another. We pray it all in Christ's name. Amen. Thank you, guys. Love y'all.